Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Carlos Rodriguez, Chief Executive Officer with the Building Industry Association, Southern California's Baldy chapter. Welcome to our first in a series of webinars for the BIA. We're excited to launch our new Front Row webinar series. Today, we're going to be talking about the COVID-19 response in San Bernardino County. We're very excited to have a distinguished panelists here and leaders throughout our state, our region, our county, and our industry. First off, I would like to say, just on behalf of the BIA and our members at the BIA Baldy chapter, continues our proactive outreach to local government and rapid response to address industry concerns. Our friend at California BIA, Dan Dunmoyer, said, "There's no shelter in place without shelter." And Governor Newsom has made it clear that home construction is an essential service. Housing and healthcare are inextricably linked. Ensuring we have housing options available at a variety of socioeconomic levels during this public health crisis will not only keep families secure, but will also reduce the spread of the coronavirus. Today, we're pleased to have, again, four distinguished leaders. I want to introduce with just some quick bios, and then we'll have them each make some opening remarks before we jump into our Q&A. And if anyone has questions for our panelists, feel free to use your Zoom little text box. I'll be monitoring those questions, and at the last 15 minutes or so of our webinar, we'll take those questions. But first, we have Senator Ling Chang. We're delighted to have you, Senator. The senator was elected to the California State Senate in June of 2018. She grew up in the district she represents and is a product of the local public schools. Taiwanese American Ling Chang is currently the only Asian American female in the California legislature. And Senator Chang serves with distinction on 5 committees, for this legislative session, including banking and financial institutions. She's the vice chair. Our business professions and economic development vice chair. She's also on the committees of education, energy, utilities, and communications, and also governmental organizations. We also have with us today the chairman of the County Board of Supervisors, Curt Hagman. Supervisor Hagman was elected to serve the San Bernardino County's 4th District in November of 2014 and was named chair of the Board of Supervisors in January of 2019. The 4th District includes the cities of Chino Hills, Montclair, Ontario, and the southern portion of Upland. It spans approximately 133 square miles and is home to over 400,000 residents. Our County Superintendent of Schools is joining us today, Ted Alejandre. He's in his 4th year term as the county's 34th superintendent. He ran on the county's lead educational seat unopposed. That's always nice in 2018. And began his second 4-year term in January 2019. He has over 30 years of experience in public education, and Superintendent Alejandre has been a teacher, a vice principal, director of fiscal services, and assistant superintendent of business services at the district level. We're delighted to have him as well. Also, last but not least, we have our BIA Baldy chapter immediate past president, Phil Burum with DR Horton. He's also a member of our governing board for the BIA of Southern California. His expanded role with BIASC comes after serving for 2 years, again, with distinction as the president of our Baldy chapter. Began serving in the BIA in 2014, has played a pivotal role in the direction of government affairs and membership within the organization since his initial appointment to the chapter board. So we're excited to have all of you here today. Almost all of you. I know Supervisor Hagman will be here momentarily, but we're going to start with the senator.
I just got here, Carlos. Sorry.
Oh, there he is, our chairman. Thank you, Supervisor. We're going to ask each of you to provide some opening comments here. We'll start with the senator. We'll go with Supervisor Hagman, then Superintendent Alejandre, and then we'll have you, Phil. You can go clean up. Okay. So with that, we'll hand it over to Senator Ling Chang, who's on mute. So we're going to unmute you there. Make sure that we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Carlos. So these are unprecedented times. We have a two-part crisis on our hands. The first is the public health side, which we are triaging at the moment through unprecedented social distancing measures. Everyone has to remember, 6 feet. It's nerve-wracking because these viruses spread exponentially, and in the beginning stages, it feels like there's not a lot happening. But there's a reason why, as a state, we are identifying as many hospital beds as we can so that we can, our healthcare system is not overwhelmed by rising numbers. And locally here in Orange County, we know that the numbers are rising. The other crisis is an economic one. People all over the state are losing their businesses, their jobs, their ability to support their families. And yesterday, the national jobless claims numbers went to 3.2 million. So 3.2 million went unemployed, and these are historic numbers. As of this past weekend, California jobless claims numbers were about 187,000, and we expect those numbers to explode. It's really difficult to imagine our economy enduring this kind of contraction for weeks on end. So earlier this month, the state legislature authorized up to $1 billion for the governor to carry out his COVID-19 response plan. Democrats and Republicans, we came together to support funding for leasing, activating more hospitals, providing hotel beds for people experiencing homelessness, and supporting local government to reduce spread of COVID-19 and homelessness population. This is an important component in containing COVID-19. There's also cleaning of child care facilities so we can keep as many as we can open. Also, we supported getting more hospital equipment, including masks and respirators, and supporting hospitals, nursing homes, and other facilities with the most threatened population. We've been hearing from a lot of constituents, families and businesses are hurting, so kids aren't in school. And on top of that, there's a level of stress that's permeating in our communities over the public health crisis. I'm working with my federal, state, and local partners to ensure we do everything we can for everyone so negatively impacted by COVID-19. Going forward, helping struggling families to support themselves and supporting getting small businesses back on their feet will be my priorities. And that includes efforts to bolster programs that help parents care for their children while dismissed from school. Thank you so much for having me this morning, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Senator. We appreciate your remarks. We'll ask Supervisor Hagman for some opening comments, please.
Good morning, Carlos. Good morning, my friends up there. This has been a group effort. We appreciate the Senator's leadership and help from the state level as well as the federal level of San Bernardino County. We are up to 55 positive tests so far and 3 deaths as of this morning in our county. There is probably a false sense of security here in the county so far, that our numbers are not as high as our neighboring counties, and that's a function of how many tests we put out to date. We're in the 600 or 700 range of testing to date in San Bernardino County versus our neighboring counties are in the thousands, I guess. And that is a lack of ability to get the supplies we need to do more testing today, and that's why I'm a little bit late coming in. I just left our first testing site, mobile testing site we're having in San Bernardino at the Orange Show, that by appointment only. We opened it up yesterday to sign up for those who have symptoms that meet the criteria for us to test them. And within the first, I would say 20 minutes, we filled up all our 400 plus slots that we had to test today. As those supplies come in, we'll continue to do community testing. We have the plans in place to do multiple test sites a day as we get the supplies in, which are ramping up. We've also taken initiative to purchase some equipment that will help us do more testing internally, because right now we have our county lab and we have Quest and LabCorp. So collectively, we're probably going to be start doing 400 to 600 a day here in the county, but we're a very large county. And Arrowhead just got their piece of equipment in yesterday, Arrowhead Hospital, that will be calibrated in the next coming days, that will allow us to start doing tests in-house. We're prioritizing public safety, fire, police, our patients in the emergency room, those type of things. And that will add to our capability to go forward. But right now it's a supply issue. Our residents are doing good, but they need to stick to even doing better of self-isolating, staying at home when they can, following all those guidelines of washing your hands and such. Those who are going to work, please keep that social distance. Please watch and use good sanitary measures when you get home and get around and don't touch your face. All those things you hear on TV makes a difference for us here in the county, makes a difference for their health. And we're just looking to pull through this together and get back to hopefully normal one these days.
Thank you, Supervisor. Appreciate your opening comments there. We'll go to Superintendent Alejandre.
Thank you, Carlos. And first, I also want to extend our appreciation and thanks to the Senator and to Chairman Hagman for all the support at the state level and the county level for our districts here in San Bernardino County. In San Bernardino County, we have 33 school districts serving about 406,000 students. And as a result of this virus, we made the difficult decision last week to close schools until May 1st in San Bernardino County. But along that decision, we continue to follow the governor's executive order for schools, which includes for all school districts to the extent practicable and feasible to provide distance learning opportunities to students across our county, as well as providing nutrition so that students get daily meals while schools are closed. And so our districts have really stepped up in providing that support to all of our students throughout the county, and will continue to do so during the remainder of the closures. We want to make sure that students have continued academic environments and at home through distance learning, and that's done in different ways, which I can go through later when some of the questions start. But again, every district is moving forward in that environment. So I'm looking forward to the conversation today and being part of this distinguished panel.
Thank you, Superintendent Alejandre. And batting cleanup, Past President Phil Burum.
Batting cleanup after these people that are used to doing this all the time. So thank you for that positioning, Carlos. Last week, although it kind of feels like a lifetime ago, Governor obviously issued a health directive that changed the way that we conduct our daily lives. And fortunately for the home building industry, the governor, the federal government, and our local officials have all determined that home building is an essential business. So we've been operating as much as we can at a normal pace. There's been some great evolution in technology in the way that we conduct business on a regular basis, and we'll talk a little bit more about that throughout this conversation. But some of these changes may actually take root and become permanent modifications to the way we interact and conduct our business. So some of them are just basic social norms, like washing your hands and covering your mouth, and some things that we sadly didn't do enough of. I'm a little bit discouraged that the handshake may become an obsolete, outdated practice, but that's something I'm trying to retrain myself on. But whatever the post-pandemic world looks like, we'll adjust and take some positive lessons from it. I, for one, am learning to embrace video conferencing. It actually is the time saver that everyone logically knew it would be. So although it's very uncomfortable looking at myself on the screen, I'm getting used to the conversation. I really appreciate today's conversation because it's important to understand that COVID-19 may change the way we interact socially, and it may change some of the ways that we do business, but it can't be empowered to interrupt our industry. The home building industry has been in a period of recovery for nearly a decade now. These past few years have really felt like the beginning of something sustainable, a predictable flow of housing. But we're still so far incredibly behind in meeting the production demand of the market. But it felt like we were on our way, and it still feels that way. So housing is a crucial part of our economy and our social well-being. It is important. I'm grateful that our county, state, and local elected leaders have acknowledged the importance of our industry and recognize it as an essential business that needs to remain active. So I'm eager for the conversation this morning and grateful for being included. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Phil. And I've been learning to, before we started working from home, to do the elbow tap. So I guess maybe that'll take the place of the handshake. Who knows? So let's start with our round of questions, starting with Senator Chang. As the Vice Chair of Business and Economic Development, is there any data you can share, such as employment by sector, and or we've been hearing a lot about the federal stimulus package effect. How would that affect Southern California, and what's your perspective on that impact to our state? And we have you on mute there, Senator. We'll need to unmute you there. There you go.
Thank you. So the state doesn't have reliable numbers yet on employment numbers by sector, so we'll have those soon, but we know all non-essential sectors have been hit very hard. Economy is incredibly complex, but the essential sectors are obvious. So for example, it's healthcare services, grocery stores, and gas stations. Actually, the most surprising one I just found out is that BevMo is still open. That's, I guess, is considered essential, as an essential sector. But that leaves most of the retail and in-person services non-essential and experiencing a devastating economic hit. Mom and pop shops to restaurants, though restaurants can allow takeout and delivery to Disneyland. And of course, it has a ripple effect all the way up the supply chain. When you consider small business employs half the California population, you start to get an idea of how devastating this is. At the federal level, an unprecedented stimulus package is poised to be approved today, hopefully. And Congress will provide $350 billion forgivable loan program designed to ensure that small businesses do not lay off employees, and a 50% refundable payroll tax credit on worker wages that will further incentivize businesses, including ones with fewer than 500 employees, to retain workers. It's also going to provide an enormous injection of cash into the economy, providing most adults with $1,200. This will be a much needed lifeline for families, but also for the economy to keep consumer spending going. So hopefully that'll be a great help. We can keep you guys up to date.
Thank you, Senator. And we're keeping our fingers crossed that maybe while we're on here today, they'll have that stimulus package done and finished and to the president as soon as possible.
Right.
Supervisor Hagman, as the chair of our Board of Supervisors in the largest geographic county in the nation, how have county departments reacted to the crisis, and are there instances of any county policies that you think have needed changing or improving to conform to this current crisis?
Thank you, Carlos. Overall, we have a 22,000 plus family member of San Bernardino County deliver the critical services, the safety net for our residents in San Bernardino County. And most of those things are pretty essential, and they get demands on them during these types of crises. So those that we consider are non-essential have been retasked to areas that been deemed essential, more needed personnel. So we're going through the internal process department to department. For the most part, we're open, so we can still take your building permits, for example. And the silver lining I see out of this whole crisis is something that you and I have talked about for years. We've been talking to the county, and we started that evolution before this crisis. That is using technology to magnify our work product, how to be more efficient in what we do. The uniqueness about San Bernardino County being very large, 20,000+ square miles, is to send someone from San Bernardino to Needles to do a 20-minute job and back can be pretty much a full day if you're driving back and forth. But with virtual technology, and now that we're forced to use virtual technology at many different levels, I think our efficiency and our productivity with the county is going to increase. That takes a lot of infrastructure to build that up for a permanent basis, but that's a good thing. But my employees here in the county have really stepped up to the challenge. The horror stories that we could run through, that everyone to stay home and not to provide those essential core services to our residents, have not come in place. Everyone's going to work. Everyone's doing their professional job. And we're very proud of what they're doing together as collectively as a team. We've had probably the most activated EOC in the country, Emergency Operating Center, because we have a lot of things going on in the county being as large as we are. And so they're very much staffed with professionals. We're in the highest alert level right now, level 1. So it's fully manned. They got plans and logistics and operations going through there for any scenario that we have in the county. So we're prepared the best we can with the supplies that we have, but we're ready to go. So they've done a phenomenal job.
Supervisor, if there's any families that are in need of urgent assistance, is there a hotline or some type of website that they should
I'm going to point them to our San Bernardino County website. We have a lot of resources, and as those packages come from Congress and the state for our businesses and families, and when that's about unemployment questions, we're putting all through that on our website. We have a joint information hotline for the public as well that will allow them to call in and ask basic questions. But really, if you have access to the internet, there's a lot of information online on our county website at sbcounty.gov. Click on the coronavirus little bug there, and it has so much more information. We also launched a new live dashboard as of yesterday to let you know how many cases are coming in and what the demographics of those cases are, male, female, and surprisingly a lot of young people. And so for those, my kids' age and in those 20s and 30s, let you know you're not immune to this. That's our highest peak right now, those being tested positive. Not that they are going to be hospitalized as much as maybe the elderly will, but they are acceptable to it and they can be spreaders themselves. So we have a lot of information on our website. We have our joint information hotline for everyone to call in as well. And I think up to date, we're taking over 4,500 calls as of today.
Before I switch a question over to Superintendent Alejandre, I just want to take a moment to express our appreciation prior to the governor's announcement of clarifying that our industry, home construction, was an essential service. There had been some cities that were unsure about San Bernardino County's stance on that, and we appreciate your loud and clear message as chair and your colleagues on the Board of Supervisors sending that message. Getting out.
I told you to build. We need housing, right?
We appreciate that. Once the governor made his subsequent clarification, we still needed to reach out. We'll have Phil talk a little bit about those implications, but notable that that was very helpful. And Senator, really appreciate your leadership in urging the governor to take that stance as well. There was a couple of hours that our industry was on pins and needles, unclear about that point. But thank you for that as well. So Superintendent Alejandre, I have two children here, 4th grade and 2nd grade, as we're hunkered down at the Rodriguez house. And I'm learning that I'm not very good at homeschooling. Fortunately, my wife is an educator and she's been doing a lion's share of that. Thank God for them, for my kids' sake. But a lot of parents are dealing with that. It's kind of a way of life now that many parents are just anxious, feeling this challenge of, how can I make sure that we're doing a good job? So that is something that I think lots of families are experiencing. Just how is the San Bernardino County schools responding generally to the crisis? Online learning is a wonderful option, but many families in the county still lack access to high-speed internet or even a computer. So what are some of those efforts underway on ensuring that there's a bridge to quality education for students during this crisis?
Yeah, great question. And as I mentioned earlier, the governor's executive order includes distance learning for students. And what our districts across San Bernardino County have really accelerated that across all of our school districts. I meet regularly with the district superintendents through a conference call on a weekly basis, and several weeks have been more than that, to really talk about how we can support their efforts. And so we established here in San Bernardino County a distance learning collaborative, probably one of the first in the state. In fact, we're working with the California Department of Education and other statewide QCED and other PBS broadcasting stations to really share what we've been able to start here that we're excited about. But the distance learning comes in various forms. Obviously, people think about connecting to the computer, which is being done through a number of different platforms that districts have subscribed to, such as Compass Learning, which we've done, but many others, where students can access platforms through the internet based on the teacher's instruction and guidance. So that's been used throughout the district. But when students don't have access, they don't have devices, then telecast is another option. So we started a partnership with KVCR here in our county, to where we've had staff from county schools that are curriculum experts, as well as other staff in districts that have worked on lesson design and planning that's been distributed, and it's on our website currently. If you're to go on our county schools website, you'll see a distance learning tab right on the front section of our website that leads to these resources. So for example, if you go into the programming schedule of KVCR, to each one of those programs are lesson designs and plans for teachers to work with students. So if they don't have that access, they have telecast opportunities. And then there's also, for those that don't have either, we've had a number, including some of our programs run through county schools, where we've actually mailed out learning packets with guidance from teachers, and through telephone conversation and other means of communicating with those families and students, that becomes another option if there's no access to the two mentioned before that. So districts are learning in different ways on how to do this. The collaborative that we've established, we've already had 3 meetings with the group through a WebEx, and we're sharing the best practices from the curriculum experts that have initiated this and have been successful with it. Our county schools teams include some incredibly skilled IT digital learning types of people that work with our chief technology officer. So we can really have optimization in terms of the equipment that's being used either in the home environment or where schools are using it from the district or school side level. But that type of support has been really helpful to make sure things are seamless. And then just how that's administered through an online platform. We've also reached out with our partners. For example, we had a partnership with First Five and Preschool Services for the county for Footsteps to Brilliance. It's an online platform that works great with mobile devices. We provided that to any parent in the entire county for their preschool age students. We've worked with them to now have that accessible to anybody in the county. So an incredible literacy platform that really builds key skills is available for everybody. And we've pushed out that information. It's also on our website for families to access. So those are some of the ways that we're working through this issue, and we're going to continue to explore others. We try to keep everything on our website, again, right on the front page so that people can see that. But before I forget, I just want to also mention that we have staff in our county schools that are physically working in our buildings. We have several administrative buildings across the county, and people may not know, but we process all the warrants for all of our vendors. So if there are vendors doing construction or any type of service for school districts that where they receive paper is through a commercial warrant, that's all done through county schools. So we have a team continuing to process right now so that all the small businesses and companies that do business with schools, they're continuing to get their payments on a regular basis. So that's not delayed or withheld. And just appreciate the employees who really stepped up and said, I'm going to continue to do what I can to support the efforts of our county and our business partners that support our school districts.
Thank you for that. And for those families that would be watching as far as access, what's your website again?
It's www.sbcss, which is San Bernardino County Superintendent Schools, .ca.us.
And they are able to access the KVCR information through the website.
Yes, and if they just Google San Bernardino County Superintendent Schools, it'll lead them to that website as well.
Great. And before I segue over to Phil here for a question, can you maybe just share a little bit about our recent collaboration between your office and the BIA as far as our efforts to work together?
Absolutely, because we know one thing that's key is to continue the building, as Supervisor Hagman mentioned earlier. And so as projects get started within any of our school districts and going through the school's fees portion of it, we're working with our chief business official who's working with BIA. In fact, there was a meeting today with all the chief business officials in the entire county to provide the process that will work well with the BIA to make sure those school fees can be receipted, and that evidence can then go forward so the permits can be issued by the different cities so that projects don't get halted or stalled. So we're looking forward to that collaboration and continuing to do that in the best way possible.
Well, thank you for that. And I wish I could take credit for that idea, but that was our immediate past president, Phil Burum, who brought that point up, and appreciate you executing that and helping us. And that leads me to our immediate past president, Mr. Burum, to give us some insights to share about, this is not business as usual. Take us into, just the builder dynamic here of how this crisis is affecting DR Horton, and maybe some ideas that you've experienced that those cities that are watching could be considering.
Thank you, and thank you for all the prior comments there, and for the collaboration, Mr. Superintendent. That's been a big deal. Our whole goal is obviously not business as usual, but let's keep the machine moving forward. Again, we're just so far behind. An interruption of any sort could be punishing. But I'd say more than just focusing on Horton and our company, I'd like to talk a little bit about the building industry as a whole and how our members in particular, how proud I am to see how quickly they've adapted to the situation. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, home building and new home sales is an essential service. So it was incumbent upon us to find ways to continue to operate safely for our employees and our trade partners and the agency representatives that we interact with on a regular daily basis. Those are several distinctly different interactive types that typically involve daily face-to-face or person-to-person contact. So the speed in which our industry made adjustments, including the adjustments made by our agency partners, like the ones sharing the screen with me, has been amazing and something I've been very proud of. But our members initiated some very basic but sound practices, many of which revolve around common sense habits, like we mentioned a minute ago. But to actually answer your question and the things that, what are we doing differently specifically to address this? Things like greeting people with a smile rather than a handshake. It's one that I'm having difficulty overcoming, but I'm working on it. Social distancing at job sites. One of the unique things about a home building operation is, although there are literally hundreds of people involved in building a home, it's not necessary that all hundreds be there at the same time. So we're able to build a home with no more than 10 people gathering, and we're able to build a home with recognizing proper social distancing. One of the things that we've had to adjust to is, for example, only having one trade partner in a home at a time. That way you get familiarity with the people that you're working closely with, and closely is in less than, more than 6 feet away, but you're still working in the same environment. So it's nice to have someone that you're familiar with working there. Having video-based inspections rather than in-person inspections. A lot of our local jurisdictions recognizing that there's no extra benefit in exposing their personnel to potential situations. There's been a lot of agencies, a lot of jurisdictions. Ontario Fire, we're conducting our very first video inspection with on Monday. So we're looking forward to the adaptations that are coming from that. So virtual inspections has been key. Simple things like more frequently cleaning lobbies and public areas. We have charts now showing how frequently we're doing it. That way they're done more timely. Kind of like a restaurant, you see a little schedule that you find in the restroom, but we're trying to keep things just more clean in the public environments. There are hand sanitizers everywhere. I've never seen so many Purell hand wash stations in my life. But as far as operating with the general public, virtual home tours have become more on the norm. Home viewings by appointment only. FaceTime meetings, phone calls, and text with home buyers have replaced a lot of the face-to-face, person-to-person meetings that you would typically have during the purchase of a home. And something that I noticed in one of our directives that came out is something as simple as having a new PIN for every client that signs a document. So it's little things like that that are changing. Just the slight modifications that we're making, I think, are making a big difference. But common sense approach, social distancing, and other than that, we're trying to stay as close to business as usual as we can. The goal is to limit direct interaction to the extent possible, and all of our teams have done a great job making that adjustment. So very happy with that.
Thank you, Phil. And I would say to the city staffs, the water districts, the school districts, those who provide fire inspections, thank you so much for the can-do attitude that we've been seeing, the use of technology, the idea of using a Skype to do an inspection. Seemingly would have been unheard of for many jurisdictions. That's becoming more and more commonplace. So we're seeing this can-do attitude more and more, and workarounds, and I think that's the American spirit that's in place right now. Just let's figure it out together. And one of the challenges, as I shift to Senator Chang, is economic. We know about the stimulus package and this devastation to our economy, Senator. This is a twofold question as you're considering getting back into the session. What would be some potential approaches you would have to help the overall economy? Any policies that you think your colleagues might be considering? And then just that more generally speaking, and then more specifically to our industry, I'm going to just read off of a recent email I received today and ask for your thoughts on it. One of our members says, I have 94 lots that are on hold due to the coronavirus. The construction lenders have told me they are not going to do business until they see what goes on with the coronavirus. We may need extensions on our maps. Mine expire this year. What are the possibilities of getting us extensions on our current maps? So that I would just extend that question to you, Senator, as far as being able to have a lifeline on maps that would otherwise expire, and the legislature has considered that in the past. And just as far as kind of the toolkit of any ideas that you think you and your colleagues might be considering in the midst of the landscape of our economy. I'd like your thoughts on that, please.
Yeah, so first and foremost, that's definitely something that we will consider. I know we're going to be getting a lot of ideas from you folks to kind of help your industry, and I'm willing to help out as much as possible and get my my colleagues to get on board. Speaking broadly about the community and the small business community, I actually went out and surveyed my small business community and got overwhelming feedback. So some of the things that they're saying, number one is cash and capital. So business owners need liquidity to continue to operate. Most have had to lay people off or put them on furlough and reduce their operations dramatically. And this is especially true for restaurants who have very thin margins. Actually, a lot of restaurant owners could lose their entire business and are panicking. There's been a push for loans, but most business owners don't want to take on debt. They want short-term help to get them through this. There are serious discussions in Sacramento about property tax moratoriums as well. That's in conversation right now. But all businesses want to know when this will end, and nobody knows the answer to that. We're hoping sooner than later. So other issues that are raised in my survey, non-essential businesses are suffering. Businesses' revenue has either stopped completely or have been severely impacted. Businesses have customers who are placing accounts on hold or dropping them completely. Employees in businesses have been showing up to work less. Traffic for business has been severely impacted. Contracts have been halted or delayed indefinitely. Businesses have a large amount of receivables and are concerned with getting paid. And businesses have indicated drops in revenue from 70 to 100%. There's been a focus on small businesses at the state level and how to help them. So some of the key actions that have been done so far, the state, via executive order, authorized local governments to halt evictions for renters and homeowners, slows foreclosures, and protects against utility shutoffs for Californians affected by COVID-19. This week, the governor announced mortgage relief. Eligible homeowners will be able to defer mortgage payments for at least 3 months. The relief package included coordination with Wells Fargo, US Bank, Citibank, and JP Morgan Chase, as well as 200 state-chartered banks and credit unions. The Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, GoBiz, has several programs available, including state loan programs, many of which are available through local, regional, small business development centers and through GoBiz iBank. Much more needs to be done, as the economic impacts of this virus will be with us for quite some time. The state has committed over $2 billion to COVID response so far, and at this time, those dollars are focused on the public health strategy, not small business. So we will have a lot more to do as people get back to work, and I will be at the forefront of that.
Do you think, Senator, there'd be a potential stimulus package approach at a state level that at all could even remotely mirror what's being done federally, just conceptually trying to infuse?
I know quite a few of my colleagues and I are trying to push for that. So we'll see what we can do.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate your leadership and also the potential of having those map extensions. I know would be tremendous relief for us as far as not having to be concerned about that. So thanks in advance for your efforts there. Going back to Supervisor Hagman, with businesses throughout the county going dormant or working at reduced capacity, what long-term financial impacts might the crisis have on the county budget and the ability to continue to deliver those vital services, I should say?
Well, for the county, yeah, you're absolutely right. Just the stock market decrease alone puts pressure on the pensions and the retirement systems throughout California. We're looking at a big hit just to make up for that before end of year shut off. Plus the fact that obviously our businesses aren't producing sales tax As people get unemployment, more county services. So it's dramatically changing our budget. We don't know what the effect's going to be yet. It's really much a day by day, but we're trying to do everything we need to do to support our residents. As times the county economy goes well, the county services demand for services go down. When the economy goes bad, which we have the short-term time period right now, those services go dramatically up. Everything from food services to go through the list of things. Much less that income coming in is reduced based on the economy as well. So as a dual layer effect, one on the operational cost that goes way up through this time period. You can imagine what it's doing to our county hospital budget right now. We're well close to over $100 million over budget, and we haven't got into our big time yet with the COVID virus, but just on the additional personnel, the overtime for our staff, all the rest of it. So the operational side and costs go way up. The services are way up on demand for our residents, as well as the long-term impact on the income coming into the county is going to greatly affect our budget. We've been fortunate over the years that, like many other good entities, put money away for that rainy day. We don't call it rainy day fund, we call it emergency services fund. And we're in those emergency services, so we have put money away, and we're thankful from the state and the federal government that they're also sending us resources to help combat the additional expenses. But it's going to take a while before we know the full impacts of this.
Supervisor, you mentioned a moment ago about the impact on the healthcare related health services budget side of things. We heard a lot of things in the news about the lack of resources or access to masks, ventilators, things of that nature. Can you speak to how that is an issue, or whether it is?
It is.
In our county?
Every day we're on the phone trying to find more supplies. We have enough for today. We have enough for tomorrow. We anticipate the demand going way up. And not just for the county healthcare provider systems, but we also help coordinate all the rest of the private hospitals within the county and those medical clinics throughout the county. So I know ISMA, which is our coordinator for all the medical services in the county, is working very hard to try to bring those supplies on board before we run out. The biggest critical part is test kits and reagents at this point. Obviously the mask and everything you hear on TV is true. We do have it right now, not enough to sustain a long term. On the good side though, I would say that production levels overseas have now gone up. So since China went back to work, you see a lot of these factories come on board with a lot of our sister cities are offering to send equipment, and both in Korea and China and Taiwan. So the manufacturing base overseas is starting to turn full at it again. Sorting out which is good equipment, which is not certified equipment, those type of things is a challenge, but we have a purchasing department that does that daily. And as obviously the supply chain is impacted, we have Ontario Airport, which is one of the biggest North America air hubs in North America. And I talked to my UPS and Federal Express Government Affairs folks a couple days ago, and they're booked, which is good. It means stuff is flowing. I wish we had increased capacity. Our capacity at the airport for enplanements on cargo is way up. Obviously on passenger is way down. But it's getting that supply chain on the right place at the right time, with the demand being across the United States, is going to be challenging at multiple different levels. But we're going to work through it.
Thank you, Supervisor. Before I ask a follow-up question to the Superintendent Alejandre, just to the state perspective, Senator, what has been some of the trends that you've been seeing at a state level relative to access to tests, access to ventilators, masks, those types of things, or any thoughts on from a state perspective and what you've been hearing?
Right, so the governor announced that we have procured quite a number of masks and respirators yesterday, I believe. In terms of tests, it's still very limited. And I believe that a lot of the tests are being reserved for those who are symptomatic rather than asymptomatic. Testing, I think that's why there's such a concern in terms of making sure people stay at home, because the number of, we just don't know how widespread this COVID-19 might be because of the limited number of tests that we have. So those who are getting tested are typically those who are symptomatic and not asymptomatic. But we're working on that. Supervisor Hagman is absolutely correct. It's the reagents and all of the different components that comprise of a test that's in limited numbers right now. Even the testing swabs, we had learned that the testing swabs come from northern Italy, so that's a problem. And I know that we're trying to talk to the CDC about using other types of swabs as a testing format. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Superintendent
Hey, Carlos,
Alejandre.
can I first follow up on that real quick,
Yeah,
just before you leave the test? This is like this morning's information, which is kind of, things are changing very rapidly on this. The current testing protocols we're using are limited, but CDC and FDA just approved a couple other type of test kits that our sister county LA has got their first batch in today. And I'm working with them right now to get some for San Bernardino. And these are the ones from South Korea that can produce literally 500 to 1 million a day with these tests. I guess they've got approval, so the first protocol's in there. And what's exciting about this is the longer we can hang on as a region or as a population to drag this out, it's not necessarily that strictly for the healthcare system, although it's very important that we can take those who need help. But these international resources are coming online daily. These testing that for the drugs to help people in the hospital and help people who are sick are doing trials right now. And so I'm optimistic that there's a light at the end of this tunnel within a few weeks that will have reagents to help fix those who do have the severe. 80% of those who get coronavirus are not going to need medical attention. That 20% that do go to our medical system will need attention. And as those tests come to show that certain drugs are working or they're effective, that shorten the distance, that limit the impact, as these supply chains come online, as these different things are getting certified by FDA and CDC, every day is something new. And so I do see this light at the end of the tunnel. We need to practice the things we're practicing right now, probably for an extended period of time. The social distancing, not shaking hands. You guys go with the Spock, live long and prosper type of thing if you need to. But the resources and the technology and the manufacturing all come together right now. And we see this at the county level as exciting for us. I see hopefully some relief coming shortly. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's good. I'm glad to hear that reason for optimism. Thanks for sharing that. Superintendent Alejandre, again, going back to families at home, trying to be able to work, but at the same time care for their children and making sure they get a quality education. A twofold question for you. Do you get any sense that what the academic calendar might look like moving forward? I mean, if you were to gauge the odds, would you think that students will be going back to school this year at all? That's question one. And question two, are there any long-term funding implications to schools for not meeting the average daily attendance, or has that been adjusted, or will that be adjusted in light of the crisis we're dealing with in the pandemic?
Right, thank you. When we met with superintendents and we did in collaboration discussions with the Department of Public Health in our county, we made the decision to close the schools until May 1st. But one of the thoughts at that time was that it still gives an opportunity for end of the year activities and things that people are really used to in their schools, especially for seniors and others, that the end of the year still be in place in a physical environment. However, that's really subject to change based on the status of whether or not it's safe for students and teachers and staff to come back after May 1st. So we're monitoring that regularly. In that environment, there's a number of issues that are coming up in terms of graduation credits, A through G course completion credits, which is a key part for college admissions for students. So we're working closely with the California Department of Education and the CSU and UC system to try to have some flexibility and some guidance and some directives before the end of this school year so that we can support students and families as they plan for after this school year taking place. But those discussions take place on a weekly and more than weekly basis with all of those partners involved. And so that's a key issue moving forward. In speaking about the budget, the governor, when he did issue the executive order, he said that schools would be held harmless. That was followed up, and thank the senator and all legislators with Senate with a bill that was passed to protect school funding, that basically what's referred to as the P2 apportionment, which is the funding for this current school year. It's normally funding is based on attendance at school and what schools submit to the state. So that attendance count went through the end of February that funds schools for the rest of this year. So the funding for this year is protected. However, all districts are really, and we're working closely with our chief business officials. As I mentioned, we have a phone call with them all today with FICMAT, which is a state agency, to really give them preliminary plans and mindsets on how to prepare for next year's budget. The governor's budget, which was released in January, obviously will have some significant changes potentially because of how this impacts all of the revenue that comes into the state, which schools get funding through Prop 98. And so we're just looking closely at how those projections may be modified or changed to really plan for that. And I know the legislature and the governor has always been supportive of school funding. So we're hoping that can work through seamlessly as we get prepared for next school year as well.
That's great to hear that. And Senator, thank you and your colleagues to ensure that our schools are left unharmed by this terrible pandemic that we're enduring. I want to ask Phil, just from the standpoint of health and safety on site. And let's talk a little bit about that. I think we are doing everything to be proactive about that as an industry, and also want to ask, as part of this interplay of panelists here, give some thoughts on that, Phil, as far as kind of the steps we're taking to ensure building and meeting our housing needs is done in a health conscious environment, and what are those steps that we're taking. And then Supervisor Hagman, would love to hear your perspective, as well as what steps are being taken at a staff level for building inspections, things of that nature, to ensure that there's continuity of services on both sides, that health is at the forefront of our mind, and we can continue to be delivering that essential service of homes and keep workers on both sides safe and healthy. We'll start with Phil and then go to Supervisor Hagman. Phil?
Well, we talked about a few of the basic things that we're doing a few minutes ago with social distancing and kind of the unique ability for home building to be able to adhere to the guidelines and still do it safely. Was talking to a friend, actually a high school friend who's from the East Coast, and I was talking to him about all the conversations we're having about home building being essential, and he was trying to understand why during this health crisis would I be advocating and fighting for home building to be considered an essential activity. We're not a first responder, we're not a health services, but I'd say that home building is important, period. No qualifier or outside circumstances are ever going to change that. Nothing changes a life for the better like home ownership or the opportunity to live in clean, safe, or affordable housing. We have to remember that in all situations. This isn't a partisan issue. It's not a religious or cultural issue. Having a safe and affordable place to live is a game changer for everyone. So my answer to the question about why we believe home building is essential amongst this health crisis is that housing is more important than ever during a pandemic. You can't shelter in place if you have no shelter. Homelessness, unsafe and overcrowded homes lead to a greater propensity of illness in general. So although the statistics on how the housing situations contribute to the spread of pandemic are not yet out, it's fairly predictable what they'll say. Housing is especially important in San Bernardino County. Our current housing supply is 70,000 housing units short, including homes, apartments, and senior housing. So to clarify, that means that we need to construct 70,000 more homes today just to appropriately satisfy the population in our county. We are the 9th highest ranked county in the state in overcrowding. Typically, meaning that multiple families are living in the same home. So several generations, several family members, all sharing the same roof. How do you remain socially distant when even your home is overcrowded? So today's not really about statistics or trying to plead for more housing. So I think everybody that's on this, that's watching and participating in this, is a supporter of more housing. But the question came up recently, so I thought I wanted to answer that. And I am curious to hear Supervisor Hagman's adjustments that the county's making. But our adjustments have been rather easy for us to do. Our schedules are being adjusted slightly. Only having one trade per house in a house at a time will slow things down a bit. But we are, as much as we can, trying to conduct business as usual, just smarter.
Thank you, Phil. And then Supervisor, from the perspective of government and ensuring the safety of the employees, which I think at the forefront of everyone's mind in our industry, and then our partners. And that's what we view our cities and our jurisdictions, water districts, school districts, fire inspectors across the board. We know they all have families. We are wanting to do everything we can to keep our job sites safe. What are some of the things that are being done at the county level to just ensure that, as a message, Supervisor, to all of the local governments across the largest county in the nation, why it's safe to continue to provide this essential service of home construction? From your perspective, what are some of the steps the county's taking?
Thank you, Carlos. Well, first of all, luckily we already had many of the means to do business in the building industry online already. We're paperless in our building, our plans, submittals, all the rest of it. You don't ever have to leave your desk to do business in San Bernardino County, build a home with our county. We also have remote inspections, which is frankly a time saver for both the builder and the inspector that we can utilize on that. But I think it's really, people got to use common sense. This is even during the regular flu season, to keep some of these health practices in place of social distancing, of washing your hands before, when you've been on the job site, whatever. Hopefully those things stay ingrained in our memory after this event, and it gets better. We have better overall health with whatever kind of sickness go around for that time period going around. But especially the building industry, you have the opportunity to still keep working and keep your distance from other workers on that site. And I think what we're hearing is it's going to be interesting. As you know, I chair Inland Empire Health Plan as well, which is the health provider, public health care provider for San Bernardino Riverside. We have over 2.5 million, or about 2 million people on that. We see flu season spike, and sometimes we have big ones or bad ones, and the numbers are very strong. And we could lose anywhere between 30 and 70,000 residents of the United States during the regular flu season. So some of these practices we're learning, hopefully they'll stick and actually help our public health going forward. But this using technology, the way we do business, I think is very important as we go forward, especially in a large county like we have, as well as to be able to learn these safe health practices. And I think with the building industry especially, you have that social distancing in place. What we've done inside our county buildings is we have restructured. We spread people out. We're sending people home to work from home with their laptops and able to take phone calls remotely. The technology has been amazing. We need to do a lot more in governance, but I'm hopeful that when we're done with this, we actually become more productive in the way we provide our services, and we give our residents much more options to deal with the county-facing departments. We already have projects underway for the county before this hit to make, I guess for lack of a better word, ATM type style machines. They can go up anywhere in the county, like we put them in our libraries. You can push a button and talk to someone like we're talking today virtually without having to drive to a particular building. And so as we gear up more and more of those front-facing public services to be able to do electronically, online, through different means, it just provides better access to our residents, better efficiency for our county staff, and more productive as well. And in this case, healthier way of doing business anyway. So it's a lot of good lessons to learn out of this crisis. Obviously, we're mostly focused on this crisis, but we also have a recovery economic plan that we put in place with a whole other set of folks within the county.
Thank you, Supervisor. It's great to hear about the embracing of technology and how that's helping you all maintain continuity of services. And as we conclude, I want to just ask each of our distinguished panelists to provide some closing comments, and we'll start with our good Senator Ling Chang.
Thank you so much, Carlos. I just want to point out that, you know, we will get through this. It's going to take all of us coming together as Californians to get past this virus and recharge the economy. I also want to note that we should take care of each other. I think that's a very important point. You know, if anyone has any questions, please contact my office. You can also get a hold of me on my website. You can follow me on Facebook and Twitter. We update daily, and that's L2 Chang CA. So please reach out to me. I have a great staff. We're all volunteering to be out there in our communities to help out as much as possible wherever we can. So thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you, Senator. And we'll go to Superintendent Alejandre.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos, for inviting me to this panel. And I just appreciate all the efforts at the state and county level to support students and schools across our county. Our teachers and paraprofessionals, administrators really are working hard to stay connected to students and provide them with ongoing educational opportunities, as well as nutrition on a daily basis. And so we're going to weather through this and come out stronger than we've had before. So thank you again for letting me be part of this panel.
Thank you. We'll have past President Burum go next.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody that was on the panel today, and those that suffered through watching from their desk. I think that the silver lining to all of this is there'll be an evolution of how we conduct business. Online planning submittals, virtual inspections, teleconferencing, all of these things, while really being done to address the COVID issue, also have the benefit of being generally more efficient with our time and resources. So I think even in a time of crisis like this, it's nice to look for the silver linings. I am thankful and grateful to be a home builder and looking forward to moving forward as much as close to normally as we possibly can. So thanks. And also just a little self-promotion for the BIA. The websites are all updated pretty regularly with up-to-date information on COVID and how different agencies are reading it. So log on to your BIASC local chapter's website and get all the information you need.
Thank you, Phil. Chairman Hagman, you'll be batting cleanup.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you for your industry to keeping our housing going strong here in San Bernardino County, and we encourage you to keep doing that. Just for everyone who's watching, things are changing, and I see on the notes that the House passed the stimulus bill just now. So I would please just keep in contact for our website. We do have, there's a lot of resources being poured in. Not that I'll take the whole time to go through all of them, but whatever your situation is, hopefully we'll have some help to direct you to the right location, whether that be getting no interest loans, to help you with your mortgage, to talk to the banks. From the employee side, you know, when that the extended home, unemployment benefits if you're unemployed, there's a lot of that information that will be on the county website. We have some nice little charts for businesses that go through SBA to figure out what you qualify for, what the terms are, and when we continue to get that data out, we will get through this together. San Bernardino is SB strong for a reason. We live through a lot of different things. We just have to use our common sense and our health practices to keep us safe as long as we can and get this thing over with, get back to business. But thank you for having me as well.
Thank you, Supervisor. And just on behalf of the BI Baldy chapter, we want to make sure that the latest information is available to you. If you go to our biabuild.com website, we have updates very regularly on that website. Also, just in closing, want to thank our distinguished panelists for your tireless efforts and your leadership. We appreciate that. Again, to our message to local government is that we're working together. It's about collaboration, a can-do attitude, finding solutions to these maybe challenges to ensure that families have shelter and family have the normalcy. There's no more normalcy that one can have than having a roof over their head. And so we can find the way to work through that through technology and new best management practices. So we're eager to do that. And we're grateful to all of our cities, water districts, school districts, supervisors, state legislators, members of Congress, for all your efforts. We're here as an industry to work with you. Just a quick close story. We had a city that was trying to work through this process of getting inspections, and there were 4 families that were in a variety of situations trying to be able to access their new home. Some of them were living in a garage. Some of them were living in hotels. Some of them were in apartments and had already given their notice. And just, again, the effort to ensure that there wasn't just a stoppage, to ensure that those families ultimately were able to get to a place where they had a roof over their head is really the epitome of what we're trying to accomplish here, and ensuring that we have that sense of security for families throughout our county, throughout our state. And then there's the bigger health care issue as well, ensuring we have housing options available to a variety of socioeconomic levels during this public health crisis. And that's not only going to keep families secure, but it's also going to reduce the spread of the coronavirus. So thank you all for your leadership. We look forward to some updates in a future webinar with all of you. To our members, thank you for your efforts. We're here for you. We look forward to better days ahead. Have a great day and God bless you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos.